Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack.
At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today and let us surprise you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fresh Take from What Fresh Hell, laughing in the face of motherhood. This is Margaret.
And this is Amy. Today, we're talking to Mallory Thomas. She is a writer, influencer, mom of 2, and a reading evangelist. She's also the author, most recently, of the romantic novel Somewhere Along the Line. Mallory's writing has also been published on outlets including Scary Mommy and featured on Good Morning America and HuffPost. Mallory strives to write books that are better than your phone because time spent reading will leave you happier and more hopeful than time spent on social media. Welcome, Mallory.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you all.
High bar you're setting there. More interesting than your phone. We are all extremely interested in our phones.
We are here for it. We've been talking about this so much on the podcast recently when we talk about, I don't know, no matter what the topic is, I feel like we somehow get back to like, and I'm spending too much time on my phone and I have to stop and I have to stop.
Yeah.
You come to us at the right time. In your own case, you had a rather rude awakening to the fact that you probably did have a overly entwined relationship with your phone. Tell us about that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So like many of us, the last couple of years I've been working remotely. So it's been hard to find the balance between when I'm at work and when I'm at home and when I'm with the kids. And that, along with the normal temptations of my phone, social media, and checking my email and checking the weather, I knew I was on my phone too much. I think like most moms, I wanted to put down my phone more, but couldn't really figure it out. And this really came to a head when my kindergartner at the time came home with her little Mother's Day book from school. You know, the ones that typically say like, my mom is 57 years old. My mom's favorite food is carrots, you know, the fill in the blanks. And I was flipping through. I was like, this is so cute. She was just learning how to write. And I flipped to the page and it said, my mom is good at fill in the blank, looking at her phone. And there was a drawing of me, a stick figure drawing with a little rectangle in my hand. And I can't even tell you. I felt ashamed. I felt guilty. I felt like a failure. I felt like this is my legacy for my kid. Out of all of the things, you know, she could have written, my mom is really good at cooking dinner. My mom is really good at giving hugs. My mom is really good at looking at her phone. I mean, I cried for days. It was, oh, yeah. It was rough.
It could have happened to any of us, but we all can identify with that Mother's Day drawing being a little bit too truthful. But this one is really like the soft
Yes.
underbelly for everybody listening, probably.
I know. Yeah, I had known that there was an issue, but that really, I was like, something has to change. We can't keep doing this. You know, my family cannot keep bearing the brunt of my challenge getting off my phone.
And so then you set out, you said, I'm going to fix this. I'm not just going to talk about it. I'm going to really figure this out and change how I'm doing things, because there's lots of methods and you will talk about that. You have reasons why you think maybe some of them don't work like they should. But let's talk about the dopamine rush that's really behind this. It's not you, it's the phone. The phone is pulling you in. There's a dopamine thing driving it. But take us into the science behind this and how the phone really makes it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say up front, I am not the expert. I have read a lot of experts because, as you mentioned, after this experience with my daughter and this gift, I went down the rabbit hole. I was like, I need to figure this out. I had tried a bunch of methods to stifle my phone use that all relied on my own sort of willpower, and that wasn't working. And then that just increased my sense of shame and beating myself up and why can't I figure this out? And so finally I was like, I need to figure out something different. And that really led me down the rabbit hole of trying to understand, how do phones affect our brains? How do they manipulate dopamine? How do phone manufacturers and app developers use what they know about how our brains work to purposefully make our phones addictive? And understanding that helped not only in getting me off my phone, but also not feeling so bad about it, right? Because for a long time, I felt like my phone use was a personal failure. That if I loved my kids more, that if I cared more, that if I was a stronger person, I could just put down my phone. And really what I know now is that we're working against active development to keep our phones addictive, right? Because when we're on our phones, the people that create these apps can sell our attention to the highest bidder for advertising, right? And so their goal is to keep us on their phones. And if they're working with our brains to do that, then we need to figure out how to work with our brains to not do it.
And it's interesting because we've had this discussion with a lot of people about how phones affect our children, that they are designed to say, one more level. And if you put your phone down, you'll go from king to peasant in the game or whatever. Like, it's all designed to make kids stay on their phones. And it's interesting. And of course it makes sense. But for moms, often the story that we tell ourselves is it's a personal failing, and that we are very generous with our kids to say, well, these are designed to kind of entrap our kids. So it's really useful to put ourselves in that same lens and give ourselves the grace that we're offering our kids in regards to technology.
You mentioned how much we think about it's difficult for our kids. And I think about myself, I am an adult. I have a fully formed frontal lobe. And this is as hard for me as it is. Of course, it's hard for our kids when they're in this crucial developmental season where their brains are not fully formed. It was important to me to figure this out for myself so that I could better model for my kids what it looks like to live a life that's not tied to a device, because I know if this is as hard for me, it's going to be even harder for them.
Let's talk about dopamine and its ties to anticipation and how that unlocked things for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my deep dive, trying to figure this out, I read a fantastic book. It's called The Molecule of More by Daniel Lieberman. And it's a really in-depth look at dopamine. And if you're in this conversation about phones and phone addiction and video games and all of that, dopamine comes up a lot. We hear it a lot in this conversation. And what I learned from that book, which changed everything for me in terms of how I viewed getting off my phone, was learning that dopamine, which we often hear positioned as the pleasure hormone or the pleasure neurotransmitter, is less about pleasure than it is about anticipation. And the problem or the challenge with our phones is that they are anticipation machines. You had mentioned, I wonder if I can just get to that next level. I wonder if that email has come through. I wonder if that item that I've been looking at is on sale. I wonder if my Instagram post got enough likes or was liked by a certain person. The promise of something good happening that we're anticipating is always on the other side of opening the phone. But then, of course, once we open the phone and we see, oh, the item isn't on sale, or it didn't get that many likes, or even if it is on sale, we buy it, and then our brains want something else, right? That's what dopamine does. It's the anticipation, it's the planning. It's why planning for Disney World is almost more enjoyable than actually being at Disney World, right? Dopamine is that anticipation driver. It pushes us for more and better. And unfortunately, we think we're going to get that from our phones, and every single time it doesn't deliver.
Or if it does deliver, it's not enough, you're saying? Like, I always understood dopamine as being, you get the pellet, you press the button, you get the pellet, but it's thinking that you might get the pellet. And then even if you do, now I want 2 pellets? If you're thinking maybe that item's on sale and then you open your phone and it is on sale, why is that not enough? What does dopamine then do? Or what does the phone then do?
Yeah, absolutely. So dopamine is the desire hormone, the planning, the anticipation. When you get something, you get your serotonin. So a different neurotransmitter. It's the difference really between like that rush of falling in love. That's all dopamine. The anticipation of like what your life can look like together. And then being in love, the happiness that comes with the serotonin of like you getting what you want. So we feel good for a minute when we buy that thing that's on sale. But then dopamine starts to ask, do I need shoes for this outfit? Or am I sure that this was the best deal? If I waited for another 2 days, could I have gotten it cheaper? And so even when we get that thing that we want, even if our phone gives us that brief hit, we immediately fall into the pattern of wanting something else because it feels good to anticipate something.
Oh, I see. So it's not you're dissatisfied, it's that you're anticipating the next thing.
Right. And the phone, it makes a lot of sense to me as you're describing it because it's like short bursts of satisfaction, but then it's like any addiction. Like you get something, you get a delivery, but then it wanes faster and faster. And like there's an endless source of the next potential source of satisfaction. Another store, another Candy Crush game, another, refreshing the email to see if something exciting happened. And that source of that short delivery, I guess it's endless on your phone, right?
Yes, absolutely. Because the promise of something else is always there on the phone. It's always there. You can always go looking for one more thing that you think is going to make you feel better for a moment.
And so the way out is, I think it's interesting that you're focusing on the shame as being something that, of course, any of us feel when it's brought up to us that we're on our phone too much, because we all are on our phones too much, but that the shame gets in the way. I want to quote something that our friend Susan Dominus wrote, and she wrote this article for the New York Times Magazine in 2015. It's almost 10 years ago, so it's crazy how much more true this is. She says, the smartphone is a rich source of paradoxical guilt for the current generation of parents. We are considered at once overbearing and totally oblivious, so besotted by our own children that it's unseemly, yet so absorbed by our phones that we're completely unaware as precious moments of childhood slip by, that we get shame both ways. And I'm curious if there was a point where you thought, I have to set this aside. This isn't my fault. This is how it's designed, and how you did that for yourself.
Yeah. First of all, I love that quote. I have never heard it, and that resonates with me so much. I think it's also important to note that I think a lot of moms fall into the phone trap because we lack community the way that generations past may have had community. It can be a place to make connections with people, to stay connected with sort of the outside world, especially for those of us that had young kids during COVID. And so I think there is an additional layer there for parents that maybe non-parents don't experience the same way in terms of how we use our phones. But yeah, for me, it was really realizing, am I viewing my parenthood journey through the lens of essentially how can I contentify this? Am I more concerned about the picture that I'm going to take here meeting Santa than I am about living this experience of my kids meeting Santa? That for me was another sort of turning point of realizing this is impacting my motherhood. Not only just my kids see me on my phone too much of the time, but also am I distant from the actual experience because there's this layer in between, this phone that's curating what my experience of motherhood looks like because I'm so focused on recording the memories instead of living the memories.
There's something about that I haven't thought about. I want to take a break and double click on that. We're talking to Mallory Thomas, and we will be right back.
Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH. My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com.
All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE.
I hadn't really thought of it that way before, this idea, because I think of the phone as I'm playing too much Candy Crush. I'm checking Facebook too often while I should be somehow engaged with my life or my children more. But the idea that there is a secondary consumer for my experience of my child that exists through the phone is a whole other aspect of this that I'm aware of, but I hadn't thought of in that way, which is, it is a pet peeve of mine when you go to a child's concert, and I always say you end up watching the concert on the iPad of the person in front of you who is taping the concert. And
Yes.
Blocking your view.
I just do want to tap them on the shoulder and say, you will never watch a 2-hour recording of your child's third grade recital. This is useless content.
Yes. I personally have never.
No one has ever done it. It does not have. And also there's a guy with a professional camera behind you who's actually taping it, and you're going to get a copy of that as well.
And yes, you can buy it for $35, I'm sure.
Yeah, and you buy, spoiler alert, you're never going to watch that.
Please don't buy it. Right.
But, yeah, don't buy it.
Right.
It's not useful. Nobody wants to see it. But so it's two aspects of the phone. One is like the sort of dopamine. And I think there's also a third aspect, which is in times of stress and worry, that there's the kind of also doom scrolling. I can control the universe by constantly, I know for myself during the pandemic, refreshing what was then Twitter 300 times a day and making sure I am currently up to date on the viral rates in Ohio is somehow keeping my family safe. And so it's not just the dopamine rush of checking social media. It's the presentational aspect. And I think also a sort of control feeling of, I'm going to look up one more article about the thing that I'm worried about so that I'm keeping everybody safe.
I experience that too. And I think there's also a piece of it that's escapism, right? Parenting is really hard. Having young kids is really overstimulating. It's easy to slip into your phone for a minute and essentially transport yourself into a different world where either you're doing Candy Crush or you realize that things are much worse in Syria than they are here. And maybe I should feel better about myself in that way. So yeah, I think it's really multi-layered.
And I'll add a fourth thing, which is that many of us, the phones are part of our work. And I don't just mean content creators on Instagram. I just talked to a mom yesterday, has a family. She's pregnant with her next baby. I was buying something from her in a store and she did the whole interaction on her phone. Her smartphone was the sales thing. And I said, that's pretty cool. And she said, it is cool. But when I'm in the store, people think I'm ignoring them. Like, I'm rude that I manage the store. And I want to say no, I'm working on this phone. I am looking up the thing you told me to look up. It's just that I don't have to go find a computer now. It's in my hand. That we are sometimes just checking the weather or how we're getting somewhere. And then of course we could find ourselves on Candy Crush 2 minutes later, or we don't, but our children or the people around us see that as self-absorption, as that stupid phone is more important than me, because we can't tell the difference between I'm checking my heart rate and are those shoes on sale. They read the same to everybody else.
Absolutely. I have 2 tips that have helped me in this particular area. One is I've started to narrate out loud what I'm doing on my phone if I'm on my phone in front of my kids. So even last night, my husband's dealing with dinner, the kids are running around, I'm on my phone, and I made sure to say, hey, I want you all to know I'm emailing Miss Latanya about the gymnastics meet so that they know I'm not ignoring them to do whatever, play on my phone, look at Instagram. So they know I'm working on my phone. And sometimes that's, oh, I'm so sorry, I have to respond to an email from my boss right now. Or, oh, I just need to check the weather so that I can make sure that what we're packing for our Thanksgiving trip is appropriate. I think that has helped demystify the phone. My kids are still young. They're 5 and 8. So they are really taken by screens in this particular age, and helping to demystify that it's not all like truly fun and games on the phone. It can be used for a more productive purpose, I think has been helpful. And then the other thing that we did is we got an Alexa, and that has helped me take some of those sort of quick hits off of my phone. So what is the weather like? Adding something to the grocery list. What time is it? Can you play a song? Things that I used to do on my phone, which could have just taken a second or so, I don't need to do on my phone anymore. And even that small change has reduced my phone use.
I find at our dinner table that I have teenagers now and a preteen, and phone-free dinner has always been kind of part of our life, but now it's like the guardrails have to get higher and higher against the phones, because one of the things I find is if we have a question at dinner, well, we would look it up. Why would you ever go through a dinner not knowing the answer to any question when you have it available on the phone? Or the things you quote unquote need your phone for, I find get much more complicated with teenagers at the table. And then, of course, I was thinking this with the example of the lady at the store, Amy, that then you have your phone and you're going to get the notification that you got an email and that it's kind of a portal that takes you out of wherever you are. And I mean, we've talked about, Amy, the example, I think, of your kids. What do butterflies eat? Oh, let's figure that out. Like, that's a fun family adventure on the phone. But I have found with teenagers, it does not happen at the dining room table ever, because once someone is opening the phone to find out what butterflies eat, then we're showing each other memes. And then, oh my gosh, did you see my buddy's YouTube channel? And it's so funny. And that the usefulness of the phones sometimes is a bad entree into everything else about the phones. And maybe we don't actually need to know who Grover Cleveland's vice president was before we finish our salad.
Well, yeah, the butterflies eating, right? I always tell my kids, I used to have to wonder that. Like, what do butterflies eat? Like, I don't know. I hope the next time I go to the library, I remember to go to the bee encyclopedia and that there'll be an entry that will tell me what butterflies eat, because otherwise I'll just always have to wonder. And they don't understand what that curiosity without an endpoint is like, and don't care that they don't understand what that was like because they have a computer in their pocket.
Yeah, they can't understand the benefit of that. That was really good for us mentally to like really chew on something, to think through it, to wonder, to think, I'm going to ask a friend tomorrow if they have ever thought about what butterflies eat. We get our information so immediately now that we've lost that sort of, and again, we're back to dopamine. There's that anticipation. It's going to take me a week to figure out, to go to the library to find out what butterflies eat. In that week, I'm going to think about it. I might make some conjecture. I might guess. I might talk to a friend. I might see if I can find a butterfly outside, right? All of that anticipation before we get the answer. Phones take that away. They give us the answer immediately, and then we're on to the next thing.
So what methods, Mallory, did you start to put in place to curtail your phone use once you said, okay, I have to do something? I think we've heard these, but I'm curious if any particularly did or did not work for you.
Yeah. I'll start with what didn't work first. And I call these my sort of trying to curtail my phone use through sheer will and force. And I tried them and it didn't help at all. So I bought a dumb phone. I thought that could work. Within 2 days, I was like, I can't even text my mom a picture of my kids. This isn't going to work long term. I got rid of that. I bought a lockbox on Amazon. You put your phone in, you set a timer. Unless you smash it with a hammer, you can't get it out.
How long until you smashed it with a hammer?
Here's the problem. I did not smash it with a hammer. What I did instead was never put my phone in it. Because, right, it required the willpower on my end to actually put the phone in and lock it, which I never ended up doing because I didn't want to not have access to my phone. I set up screen time limits. I made my husband have the passcode. And then I found myself at 11 p.m. trying to figure out the passcode. Oh, this is the last four of my husband's social. Maybe that's it.
You're like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. Dun, 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 dun,
yes.
dun.
Yes. Like trying to figure it out. And in my head, I'm like, oh, but I really just need to check and make sure that XYZ. Did I really? It's like the butterfly thing. No, I could have waited until the morning. So I tried that. That didn't work. I tried putting my phone on grayscale. I don't know if you've heard of that.
That's one we've definitely heard.
Yes. And the problem there is that I could just turn it back, right? Anytime that I had the ability to circumvent the intervention, I did, because that's human nature. So I tried all of that. None of it worked. It was expensive. It left me feeling worse again about how I couldn't figure this out. I couldn't just put my phone down and focus on my kids. And then I realized that through reading about dopamine, Daniel Lieberman's book, The Molecule of More, that doing all of that was really working against how my brain wants to operate. It's really difficult to just remove something. And that's what I was trying to do. I was focusing on how to use my phone less. And the answer, and what finally showed success in my life in this area, was instead switching to focus on what can I do more of? Instead of how do I use my phone less? What can I do with my brain and my time and my hands instead? What can I do more of? And that was really the answer. And for me, that's looked like reading. So knowing what I know now about anticipation and that my brain craves the experience of anticipation, that's the driver for me picking up my phone all the time, I decided to jump back into reading. And I will say this was not entirely self-serving because I also wanted my daughter, who had written that horrible thing about me looking at my phone all the time, I wanted her to see me reading, right? I wanted the next year for her to draw a picture of me with a book. I wanted her to see me reading. And so I picked up fiction for the first time in 15 years. Like, I think a lot of us, my reading really fell by the wayside when I had kids. And when I was reading, it tended to be parenting books or self-help books or a cookbook, nonfiction. And I like those books. They're fine. I've learned a lot, but they don't scratch that anticipation itch in my brain. Right? There's never a part of me that thinks, instead of scrolling through Instagram, I really want to read this parenting book. I read it because I feel like I have to. I need the strategies for my kids, but I push myself to do it. There's no part of my brain that thinks that's more exciting than my phone. And I think somewhere along the way, I had convinced myself that for reading to count, it needed to be intellectual. I needed to learn something. We have so little free time as parents that I felt like I couldn't waste that time, quote unquote, doing something that wasn't productive, that didn't have a measurable outcome of how this was going to improve my life because I could do XYZ now that I learned from reading this book. But in learning, again, about dopamine and anticipation, I was like, maybe the answer is just picking up a book to read for fun. And I tried it as an experiment more than anything else. And it was shocking how quickly it worked because it filled that desire in my brain for anticipation and the joy of figuring out what's going to happen next. And so I started reading, and I read more and I read more and I read more. And now my daughter is a reader too. And it's something we do together, and it's been the best. But that really was the key, was figuring out what am I going to do instead of looking at my phone that's going to fill that same need for anticipation of the outcome in the way that the phone used to fill.
We're going to take a break. We're talking to Mallory Thomas, and we'll be right back. Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING.
Hey there, I'm Kendra Adachi, and my show, The Lazy Genius Podcast, helps you be a genius about the things that matter and lazy about the things that don't, and you get to decide what matters. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to give you a new way to see. Episodes of the Lazy Genius Podcast are full of compassionate time management tips and permission slips to do what makes sense for you. New episodes drop every Monday. Follow and listen to the Lazy Genius Podcast on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Mallory, so you're sort of saying that it's certain kinds of books, I think, that are very either suspenseful or propulsive, and like you can't wait to pick them up again. And I think we all know what you mean. You need to find that kind of book, but your mileage may vary. Margaret, a year or two ago, was talking about very hot elf sex books that end up being fairy sex, right? Or was it a little bit of both?
Yes. I created a huge debate because I called them elf sex books because they're fairies, but I've moved on now to dragon rider sex books, and they're phenomenal.
And they are, you get in bed and you want to read those more than you want to look at TikTok.
Doom scroll Reddit. Yes, correct.
And yet those don't, that kind of like, it doesn't really sound. So what do you think the key is? If it isn't a suspenseful book, what's the way in for somebody else who was like, well, but I don't really like those kinds of books? What are they looking for instead of the phone?
It doesn't have to be reading at all, right? Reading works for me because I can do it in my little pockets of time that I used to do on my phone. I have a Kindle. I can pull it out when I'm waiting in line at the grocery store. For folks that books don't feel exciting, it can be any sort of hobby that you're looking forward to the outcome. So it can be putting a puzzle together that's 1,000 pieces. It can be knitting. I've been seeing on TikTok these little kits where you can knit a little dumpster fire. It comes with a pattern. You've got the outcome right there. It can be gardening, and you're going through the process and you're waiting the entire season to see the results. Anything like that where it uses your hands, it uses your time, it occupies your mind, and there's an outcome that you want to get to. That's the goal. If reading, you're like, I want to read, I want my kids to see me reading, and you're not sure what sort of book could be for you, go to your local library, talk to a librarian, say, these are the things that I really like. These are the things I'm not into. Can you recommend a book that is so compelling I won't be able to put it down? Librarians are going to be your best resource.
I think one of the things that we talk a lot about on the podcast that I'm hearing in this conversation is also, what is your story about what's happening with yourself? And the idea of, I would even challenge the story that your daughter who drew this picture of you, that my guess is if I had a conversation with her, she would not describe you solely as a person who looks at your phone. It's like these moments in time that sort of get to our story, and the idea of, I think for myself, sometimes the story of the phone, and I've talked about it with the story of food, becomes like, I do everything for everyone, and so I deserve to eat this pile of chocolate chip scones because no one will take this from me. They've taken everything else from me. And
Sure.
that story is working against me. It's working against how I feel. It's working against my ability to relax because I feel like I will sit quietly hunched like a troll over my phone because I've earned it. But in fact, it's not actually making you. If it was working, I would say, great, like you have earned it. But I know that when my back is aching and like I'm literally getting carpal tunnel from playing too much Candy Crush, it's actually not working for me.
I will say that has been something that's been helpful for me as well. And I would also recommend the book Atomic Habits if you haven't read it. And that's one that I muscled my way through because I felt like I should read it. But it was really helpful in that changing that story about yourself is foundational. So for me, that meant I'm going to believe that I am a reader, even if I read 3 pages a day. I don't need to read 70 books a year. I don't need to read all of the bestsellers and all of the nonfiction. I can still be a reader if I read 5 minutes a day while I'm in line at Kroger. That really, I think, is transformational because you're right. I mean, so often, I know in my case too, we tell ourselves stories that, like you said, just aren't helpful.
The phone in your purse and then you pull out the Kindle instead at the grocery store. That's one advantage, it seems to me, over a puzzle, or you might not have your needlepoint with you at the grocery store. But pulling out the Kindle, that is an atomic habit, right? I'm just going to have that with me. And when I go to reach the phone, I'm going to reach for the Kindle instead. Or I'm going to keep my phone in the kitchen at night. These are they're habits that do start to create change over time. But I want to talk about your personal story because you got really good at figuring out why phones are so addictive. They're dopamine machines. Then you figured out that you really liked reading books that tickled your brain in that way, and you didn't want to put them down. And then you thought to yourself, what if I tried to write a book that you couldn't put down using everything that I'm learned? And you set out to do that, and then you actually did it. So tell us how that worked for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think another piece of this conversation, especially as I think about my kids and what they see me doing, is I wanted them to see me create instead of always just consuming, right? And so I had made a shift where I wasn't consuming digital content. Now I was consuming written content. But what would it look like for them to see me create as well? And what would it look like for them to see me do something new and be bad at it at first? And I realized I hadn't really given my kids that opportunity, right? I asked them to try new things and to be bad at things every single day because they're beginners, they're young. But they've never seen me do that. And so part of it was wanting to model that for my kids. Part of it was wanting to prove to myself that I could do it. And then a big part, as you mentioned, was really wanting to see if I could take what I had learned about dopamine, about how the brain works, about what worked for me, getting off my phone and being just sort of enraptured by a novel. And if I could sort of use that to craft what I would say is like the perfect novel for me and my brain, the perfect novel that has all of the things that my brain wants so that I look there instead of my phone. And it was such a fun process. Number one, of identifying what are those things. So for me, it's a book that's fast paced and short. People love the fairy sex. I can't do it. It's 500 pages. I look at the book. It stresses me out. I can't get into it. The world building and the this person has special powers because they're like half human and half elf or whatever. I don't have the capacity at this season in my life and my motherhood to work that out. So short, fast paced, a realistic setting, witty dialogue that keeps things moving, a couple of spicy scenes, because I love knowing that I'm reading a book and that's going to come at some point, but I don't know when. That keeps me reading. A guaranteed happy ending, all of those things. And also, there's a happy ending, but you don't know how they're going to get there. You've got the assurance that you're going to get a good outcome, but you don't know how they're going to get there. And that builds the anticipation. That makes you feel good. That keeps you coming back. And so it was really a labor of love of figuring out, how do I write this story that has everything my brain wants? Because I know that there are other people with brains like mine that could also get off their phone reading a story like this.
And so I looked at the Amazon reviews for this novel, which is called Somewhere Along the Line. It came out this fall, and you have many, many Amazon reviewers saying, I couldn't put this down. I read it in a day. I ignored my phone. I hid from my boss. And so that must be incredibly gratifying to see, like, it worked. You gave enjoyment to your readers, and you also got them to put down their phones.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. And, obviously that gives me a sense of pride and validation, but also knowing that maybe there's someone else out there and their kids saw them sitting on the couch reading this book instead of looking at their phone. Not only did I give them the enjoyment of the book, but I also gave them the feeling of knowing they're modeling for their kids something that they likely want to model. That sort of like duality of the benefit. You're having a good time, you're reading, but you're also being a good role model for your kids. And I got to give that to them. It's the best.
And before we close, I do want to just, for people who are listening, and it's like, the story is, I decided to stop looking at my phone. I took up reading and I wrote a novel, and we all lived happily ever after. This phone relationship is a journey. We use the phrase back to one a lot, meaning we got to reset on this all the time. And there are seasons, this phone will find you again. And we've certainly talked about phones, and we do a New Year's episode, and Amy and I have both always said, we're going to read more. We're going to read more. We're going to use our phones less. And I think that the tools that you're talking about, whether it's I like to do a puzzle in the evening, or I'm going to pick up my Kindle instead of my phone, you want to set these as places you can return to. And, eating, as I was discussing, is the same way. Like, we will slide back. I mean, you're not now a person, I'm sure, who is 100% free from the phone and skipping through fields, reading and writing books all day, every day. It's a work in progress for all of us, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the ironic part of it is now I'm probably on my phone a little more because now I'm talking about the book on social media. And so it's,
Right. How to promote the book. Back to Facebook. Yeah.
Back to Facebook, back to Instagram. So it's a challenge that way. But I've listened to some of your episodes where you talk about this idea of back to one. And that's absolutely the approach I take, of being aware of when I'm sliding. And the phone makes it easy because it gives you that screen time report every single day, every single week that you can benchmark and say, oh, I'm sliding a little bit. And then you can go back to one and say, okay, that's right. I really don't want to have my phone anywhere in the kitchen during dinner. I'm going to put it in the junk drawer or whatever else. And just those small back to one moments of, I know if I have my phone by my bedside, I'm going to stay up too late and I'm going to scroll. And so I'm not going to put it there. Those sorts of things are really helpful because you're right. It is easy to slide. We all slide. Nobody's perfect. But the minutes that you're not on your phone add up. You don't have to go from 7 hours a day to 20 minutes a day. If you cut down your phone time by 30 minutes over the course of a week or a month, that is so many hours that you're not on your phone when you used to be. And that's another Atomic Habits principle. But yeah, I love the concept of the back to one, and also introducing it to my kids in terms of their iPad use. We got to go back to one. Over Thanksgiving break, we got way crazy with the screen time. Now we're back to one. We're only going to do this 20 minutes a day.
Mallory, tell our listeners where they can find Somewhere Along the Line and everything that you do.
Absolutely. I am on Instagram and Threads and TikTok at MalloryThomas_writes. You can find my book Somewhere Along the Line at my website, MalloryThomas.com, at Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, wherever books are sold online.
And we will link to all of those places in the show notes for today's episode. Mallory, thanks so much for talking to us today.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mallory.